Hello and welcome to this London Embroidery School Pro tip, where today I will be showing you how to finish the edges of this freestanding goldwork piece, as it can be used as a decoration. However, this approach would also be applicable if you are making other freestanding outcomes for your embroidery, such as a brooch or patch. The important thing here is that the base fabric is already non-fray, but it will give us a fluffy edge when we cut it, and we want it to have a clean back, so this approach will work well for us. If you don't have a non-fray base fabric, you might do better with another pro tip in our playlist called Tucking Under Freestanding Embroideries, as that will show you how to close the edge to avoid fraying. If you enjoy these tips, please consider subscribing to our channel to be the first to know when we release new ones. On to the equipment and materials we're going to use today. Here we have the piece we're going to be working with today, Introduction to Goldwork Cherry Design. I'm going to need a size 10 embroidery needle and thread that matches our base fabric to stitch it all up with. Some scissors to cut off any threads and a few pins to hold everything together. As I'm going to be turning this into a decoration, I've also got some nice red ribbon and a stiletto to punch the hole to insert the ribbon. I've also got a pencil here that's just going to help me mark the outside edge and give me some guidelines. Onto the stitching. So with our piece in front of us, we're just going to fold underneath some of the excess with a nice generous border so that we know we've got a nice clean back for our piece to work with. Bringing over some of the pins, I'm just going to pin roughly around the edge of my embroidery so that both layers are held into place and we can work on both layers together as a pair. Try and avoid damaging your embroidery at this stage, so do be careful with your pins, but pin nice and close so that everything is all working together as one piece. Once you've done that, then I'm going to mark the area at the top where I'm going to leave some excess because I'm going to be turning this into a decoration and I want some room for the hanging loop. But otherwise I'm just going to mark myself a small border of about 5mm onto the felt, which I'm going to cut off when we cut out the shape. Bringing over your scissors, you can now go ahead and start to cut out the two layers together using those scissors and cutting off the pencil marks as you go. Try to keep the piece as flat as possible as you cut so that the two layers are both exactly the same size and shape for making a nice clean sandwich when we sew them all together. Take your thread and cut yourself a comfortable length to work with. You can then thread this up into your needle. I'm going to be using the bloom into the eye method today, but you use whatever style you prefer. We're going to be doing the edge with a double thickness strand of thread, so bring the two ends together and tie a knot in the end. You can then bring over your embroidery piece and start wherever you like, leaving the knot on the back. You want to perform a couple of little stab stitches just to get started and anchor that thread nice and securely to our fabric. For your first stitch, go along the edge of your piece a few millimeters and bring the needle up as close to the edge as you can, but while still being in an area of the fabric that feels secure and isn't going to pull out. Bring the needle up from the back, keeping the needle at 90 degrees to the back of the fabric so that the stitch is nice and perpendicular through both layers of the fabric. Pull this through tight and evenly, move along a couple more millimeters and perform the same stitch again. This is just going to allow the thread to wrap the two layers of the fabric together along the outside and bring them together in a nice smooth outside edge. Do make sure that your two layers of thread are pulling together evenly for a nice crisp finish. Continue to work your way around the edge. If you need to make your stitches more dense as you go towards a corner, then do so. As you work, you should be able to start to remove the pins that you have left in, particularly if they get in your way. I find that holding my piece upright so that I'm just looking at the edge is the easiest way of doing this, rather than looking at it embroidery straight on, as it gives you a better view of what the edge is going to be looking like when it's finished. If at any point you need a new thread, then you can just knot off this thread discreetly on the back and start a new one in the same fashion as we did with the first thread, giving yourself a few anchoring stitches to start with so you've got a good strong base for the rest of the edge closing. Try not to cross your embroidery with the hand that's holding the piece as well, as obviously you've put in a lot of work and time into that piece and we just want to finish it off beautifully at this point. If you are using your piece as a brooch or a patch, then you can go ahead and attach that onto the back or onto its piece. As I'm going to be making mine into a decoration, I've just marked the little hole in which I want to add the ribbon, and using my stiletto, I'm just going to punch through a nice clean hole that we can work around and support the edge of. Taking another piece of thread, this time I'm going to be working with a single strand. I'm going to thread that into my needle again, and what we're going to be doing is a little satin stitch edge for the hole we've just created so that it stays nice and clean. So to do that, starting off leaving the knot on the back, we're going to come up to the surface and do a little running stitch around the edge of the hole to provide a little bit of support. This fabric is quite spongy, so it's probably going to close the hole every now and then, and we can go back in with the stiletto to reopen that as we work with it. With that in place, we're now going to start to do our satin stitch. So coming up through the centre of the hole, you just want to perform a small perpendicular to the centre of the circle stitch that goes up and over the outside edge of the hole, and that's just going to help to hold the hole open and give us a nice clean finish. Try to keep the depth of your stitches all the same as you work around, for the best, most professional finish you can provide. As you complete each stitch, move close along around the circle to continue with your satin stitch until you've been the whole way around. When you've been the whole way around, you can do a slip knot a couple of times to knot off your thread and then cut away the excess. Now you should be ready to add your ribbon, so feed that through your hole and even out the ends of the ribbon, tying them in a nice little knot, and you should be ready to use your decoration wherever you wish. Thanks for joining me for this pro tip today. Do check out the rest of the videos in our pro tips playlist if there's something else you might enjoy, and consider subscribing to the London Embroidery School for this sort of content if you have enjoyed it. Leave us a comment below if there's any pro tip in particular you would like us to record for you. So yeah, in the comments below, let us know. See you in the next one.